The stagecoach rattled to a stop in a cloud of dust, the wooden wheels creaking under the weight of its passengers and their hopes. Olivia Zimmerman clutched her small valise with trembling hands as she gazed out at Castle Dome, Arizona Territory. The year was 1879, and this dusty mining town nestled at the base of the Castle Dome mountain represented everything she had gambled her future on. "Last stop, Castle Dome," called the driver, his voice weathered from years of shouting over the pounding of hooves and the howling desert wind. Olivia straightened her dove-gray traveling dress, checked that her bonnet was secure, and stepped down from the stagecoach with as much dignity as her exhausted body could muster. The 3-week journey from Philadelphia had left her weary, but the promise of a new life a husband kept her spine straight and her chin high. "You must be the mail-order bride," said a gruff voice. She turned to see a portly man with a star pinned to his vest approaching. "The sheriff," she presumed. "Yes, sir. I'm Olivia Zimmerman. I've come to meet Mr. Harold Blackburn." She fumbled in her reticule for the letter that had brought her across the country. "He's expecting me." The sheriff's expression changed, a flicker of discomfort passing over his sun-leathered face. "Madam, I think you'd better come with me." A chill ran through Olivia despite the oppressive heat. "Is something wrong with Mr. Blackburn?" "Not exactly. Just follow me." The sheriff led her down the main street of Castle Dome, past curious onlookers who paused in their daily business to stare at the newcomer. Olivia felt their eyes like physical touches, some sympathetic, others merely curious, a few boldly appraising. She kept her gaze forward, refusing to shrink under their scrutiny. They arrived at a whitewashed building with a hand-painted sign identifying it as the town hall. Inside, several men in suits stood in a loose circle. At their center was a thin man with a meticulously groomed mustache who seemed to be in the middle of an animated discussion. "Mr. Blackburn," the sheriff called, interrupting the conversation, "your arrangement has arrived." All eyes turned to Olivia. Harold Blackburn's expression shifted from annoyance to something like horror. "This is she," he said, his voice high with disbelief. "This cannot be right." Olivia felt her face flush hot with humiliation. "Sir, I am Olivia Zimmerman. We've corresponded for 6 months. I have your letters." "There's been a misunderstanding," Blackburn cut her off, addressing the room rather than her. "I specifically requested a woman of robust constitution, someone who could assist with the household and eventually the business. This delicate creature would collapse in our heat within a week." "Mr. Blackburn, I assure you I'm stronger than I appear," Olivia protested, her voice steady despite the quickening of her pulse. "And I'm quite capable. It's not just that," he continued as if she hadn't spoken. "The advertisement clearly stated my requirements. I need someone practical, not—" His eyes swept over her dismissively. "Not someone who looks like she's never done a day's work in her life." One of the men, gray-haired and distinguished, cleared his throat. "Harold, this isn't appropriate. The young lady has traveled a great distance. On false pretenses, Judge Taylor. I won't be held to an agreement when the terms weren't met." Blackburn straightened his jacket. "I'm sorry, Miss Zimmerman, but I'm afraid you've wasted your journey. I cannot accept you as my bride." The world seemed to tilt beneath Olivia's feet. 6 months of correspondence. Her entire savings spent on the journey. The sale of her mother's silver. The humiliation of telling everyone in Philadelphia that she was going west to be married. And now this rejection before the entire town leadership. What am I to do?" she whispered, hating the weakness in her voice but unable to control it. The judge sighed. "We can arrange passage back east on tomorrow's stage, though it would be at your expense." "I don't have the money for return fare," Olivia admitted, her cheeks burning. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Outside, she could hear the normal sounds of the town horses' hooves, distant laughter from the saloon, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer. Life continuing as if hers hadn't just crumbled to dust. "Well, this is a predicament," the sheriff muttered. "Perhaps we could take up a collection, or perhaps," Blackburn interjected, "we could see if anyone else in town is in need of a wife." Though I doubt, the door to the town hall burst open, cutting off Blackburn's cruel suggestion. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the bright Arizona sun, hat pulled low over his eyes. As he stepped into the shadowed interior, Olivia could make out a rugged face, sun-bronzed and serious, with eyes the color of a summer storm. "What's all this commotion about?" the newcomer asked, his voice deep and even. "Nothing that concerns you, Travis," Blackburn said dismissively. "Just a mail-order arrangement gone awry." The man Travis looked at Olivia then, his gaze direct and assessing. She fought the urge to look away to hide the evidence of her humiliation. "This the bride you've been crowing about for months, Blackburn?" he asked. "A mistake," Blackburn replied curtly. "Not what was advertised." Travis's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He looked again at Olivia, then at the room of uncomfortable men who had witnessed her rejection. When he spoke again, his voice carried the quiet authority of a man accustomed to being heard. "She is mine." The words hung in the air, simple yet staggering. Olivia blinked, certain she'd misheard. "What did you say, Thompson?" Blackburn demanded. "I said she is mine." Travis Thompson removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair that curled slightly at the nape of his neck. "If you're fool enough to turn away a lady who's traveled across the country on your invitation, then I'll honor the commitment you made." "Now see here," Blackburn began, but Travis cut him off. "Miss," he said, addressing Olivia directly for the first time, "I apologize for this reception. Castle Dome isn't usually so inhospitable. I'm Travis Thompson. I own a ranch outside of town. It's not much, but there's a solid roof and clean water. If you'd prefer an honest offer of marriage to returning east, I'd be honored to provide it." Olivia stared at him, searching for mockery in his expression and finding none. "You don't even know me," she said softly. "I know enough," he replied. "I know you're brave enough to travel west alone. I know you're not afraid of hard work, or you wouldn't have come to be a rancher's wife. And I know Harold Blackburn has the judgment of a blind mule, which speaks well of you." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through the room. Blackburn's face darkened with anger. "This is preposterous," he sputtered. "You can't just claim another man's mail-order bride. She's not yours," Travis pointed out calmly. "You just rejected her in front of witnesses." "Thompson, you're making a fool of yourself," one of the other men said. "You can't marry a woman you've just met." "Why not? Isn't that what a mail-order arrangement is?" Travis turned back to Olivia. "Miss Zimmerman, I'm not offering you romance from a penny novel. I'm offering you a partnership, a home, and respect, which is more than you've been shown today." Olivia felt as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind her lay humiliation, destitution, and the shame of returning to Philadelphia unmarried and penniless. Before her stood this stranger with steady eyes and an impossible offer. Common sense told her to be wary. But something else, something that felt strangely like hope, urged her forward. "Mr. Thompson," she said carefully, "I appreciate your gallantry, but I cannot accept such an offer made in the heat of the moment. You might regret it tomorrow." "I'm not known for making hasty decisions, Miss Zimmerman, or for regretting them." He extended his hand toward her. "But the choice is yours. No obligation. If you'd like to consider it, I can arrange lodging for you at the boarding house while you decide." Olivia looked at his outstretched hand, a working man's hand, strong and calloused. So different from Blackburn's soft, manicured fingers. She thought of the lonely room that awaited her at whatever boarding house this dusty town offered. She thought of her empty purse and the long road home. Then she thought of the quiet dignity in Travis Thompson's eyes when he'd claimed her before the entire room. She placed her hand in his. "I accept your offer, Mr. Thompson, not of immediate marriage, but of time to consider it properly." His fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. "Fair enough." The sheriff cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, that's settled then. Thompson will take responsibility for Miss Zimmerman's welfare until further arrangements are made." As Travis led her from the town hall, Olivia could feel the stares following them. Whispers started the moment they crossed the threshold. By nightfall, every soul in Castle Dome would know of Harold Blackburn's rejection and Travis Thompson's unexpected proposal. "I'm sorry about that," Travis said as they walked down the wooden sidewalk. "You deserved a better welcome." "Thank you for your intervention, Mr. Thompson, though I'm still not certain why you offered it." He glanced down at her, his expression unreadable beneath the shadow of his hat brim. "A man keeps his word in these parts, Miss Zimmerman, or he should. What Blackburn did wasn't right. Still, offering marriage to a stranger is rather extreme." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Out here, extremes are sometimes necessary." He nodded toward a modest two-story building across the street. "That's Mrs. Holloway's boarding house. Best place in town. I've already arranged for a room for you." Olivia stopped walking. "You had already arranged it, before you even spoke to me." "I overheard what was happening at the town hall when I was at the mercantile next door. Figured you'd need someplace to stay regardless of your decision." She studied him with new curiosity. This man was either remarkably considerate or remarkably calculating, perhaps both. "I appreciate your thoughtfulness, Mr. Thompson." "Travis," he corrected. "If we're going to be considering a life together, we might as well use our given names." "Travis," she repeated, the name feeling strange on her tongue. "Then you must call me Olivia." He nodded, a simple acceptance of this small intimacy. They continued to the boarding house in silence. Mrs. Holloway proved to be a plump, cheerful widow who clucked sympathetically when Travis explained the situation, tactfully omitting Blackburn's harsh rejection and focusing instead on Olivia's need for temporary accommodation. "You poor dear, traveling all this way. Well, you'll be comfortable here. I've got the best room saved for you, corner room, catches the morning light beautifully." Mrs. Holloway patted Olivia's arm. "And don't you worry about a thing. Castle Dome might seem rough around the edges, but we take care of our own." "Thank you, but I'm not your own yet," Olivia pointed out gently. Mrs. Holloway smiled knowingly at Travis. "You will be, dear. Now come along, let me show you to your room." As Olivia followed the landlady up the stairs, she glanced back to see Travis watching her, his expression thoughtful. He tipped his hat slightly when their eyes met. "I'll call on you tomorrow," he said, "after you've had a chance to rest." Olivia nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the day's events. In less than an hour, she had gone from mail-order bride to rejected outsider to what? The potential wife of a man she'd just met. It was madness. And yet, as she watched Travis Thompson turn and walk back into the bright Arizona sun, she couldn't help but feel that perhaps madness was exactly what the West demanded. "He's a good man, Mrs. Holloway said as they reached the top of the stairs. "One of the best in these parts." "You know him well?" Olivia asked. "Well enough. Travis Thompson keeps to himself mostly, but he's fair in his dealings and generous when folks need help. His ranch is modest but growing. Started with nothing 5 years ago, now has one of the better spreads in the county." She opened a door revealing a clean, simply furnished room. Not one for town gossip or saloon brawls. Comes in for supplies and church on Sundays, that's about it. And he's never married. Olivia asked, trying to make the question sound casual as she set her valise on the bed. Mrs. Holloway's eyes twinkled. Not for lack of opportunity. Half the unmarried women in the territory have set their caps for him, but he's never seemed interested. Until today, that is. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. His offer was merely a kindness, I'm sure. Travis Thompson doesn't do anything merely, dear. If he offered, he meant it. The landlady moved to the window and opened it, letting in a breeze. Now I'll bring up some wash water. Dinner's at 6. You rest until then. When Mrs. Holloway left, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the day's events. Tears that she'd refused to shed in the town hall now slipped down her cheeks. Everything she'd planned, everything she'd risked, all of it unraveled in an instant of cruel rejection. And then, just as quickly, this stranger had stepped forward with an offer that defied all reason. Was he a hero from a dime novel, or was there something more calculating behind his gallantry? Olivia was no naive girl. At 22, she'd seen enough of life to know that men rarely acted without self-interest. After her father's death had left her and her mother in reduced circumstances, she'd worked as a seamstress and seen firsthand how men could take advantage of women with few options. When her mother passed last year, leaving Olivia truly alone, the advertisement seeking a bride for a successful businessman in Arizona territory had seemed like providence. Harold Blackburn's letters had been formal but kind, describing a comfortable home and promising respect and security. Now she wondered if she'd been a fool to believe him, or if she'd be an even bigger fool to believe Travis Thompson's sudden proposal. She wiped her tears and moved to the small mirror hanging on the wall. The woman who looked back at her was pale with exhaustion, her honey blonde hair escaping its pins, her blue eyes reddened from crying. Not exactly the picture of a desirable bride. One day at a time, she whispered to her reflection. She would rest, eat a proper meal, and approach tomorrow with a clear head. Travis Thompson's offer required careful consideration, not desperate acceptance, and if it turned out to be another cruel joke of fate, well, she'd survived worse. Somehow, she would find her way in this harsh new land with or without a husband. The next morning, Olivia woke to golden sunlight streaming through her window. For a moment, she was disoriented, the unfamiliar room and the distant sounds of a town coming to life confusing her sleep-addled mind. Then yesterday's events rushed back, and she sat up with a jolt. She was in Castle Dome. She had been rejected by her intended husband, and she had received an unexpected marriage proposal from a man she'd known for less than 5 minutes. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Zimmerman," came Mrs. Holloway's cheerful voice. "Breakfast is ready downstairs when you are, and you've had a delivery." Curious, Olivia quickly dressed in a simple blue calico dress, one of only 3 she'd brought with her, and made her way downstairs. In the small dining room, Mrs. Holloway was setting out plates for the handful of boarders already seated at the long table. "There you are, dear. I've saved you a place." She gestured to an empty chair. "And this came for you just after sunrise." She handed Olivia a small package wrapped in brown paper. Attached was a note written in a firm, clear hand. "Miss Zimmerman, please accept this small token of welcome to Castle Dome. I'll call at 10 if that's convenient. Respectfully, Travis Thompson." Olivia unwrapped the package to find a book, a collection of essays by Ralph Waldo Emerson. She opened the cover and found another brief note inside. "For new beginnings." The chapter on self-reliance seems especially fitting. She ran her fingers over the words, oddly touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Not flowers or candy as a typical suitor might send, but something that acknowledged her mind. Well, what did he send? Mrs. Holloway asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Olivia showed her the book. Not the most romantic gift, is it? The landlady observed. Actually, I think it's perfect, Olivia replied softly. After breakfast, Olivia found herself growing increasingly nervous as 10 o'clock approached. She changed dresses twice before settling on her best day dress, a forest green poplin with modest bustle and lace at the collar. It was perhaps too formal for a morning call, but she wanted to present her best self to the man who had offered her a future. At precisely 10 o'clock, Mrs. Holloway called up the stairs. "Miss Zimmerman, Mr. Thompson is here." Olivia took a deep breath, checked her appearance once more in the mirror, and descended the stairs with what she hoped was dignified composure. Travis Thompson stood in the small parlor, hat in hand. In the clear light of day, she could see him properly for the first time. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his frame powerful without being bulky. His face was tanned from outdoor work, with lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he was perhaps in his early 30s. His hair was dark brown, almost black, and his eyes were indeed the color of storm clouds, gray with hints of blue. He was dressed simply but neatly in clean work clothes, dark trousers, a blue shirt, and a leather vest. Not the attire of a wealthy man, but of one who took care in his appearance. "Good morning, Mr. Travis," she corrected herself. "Olivia," he greeted her with a slight bow. "I hope you slept well." "As well as could be expected. Thank you for the book. It was very thoughtful." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "I'm glad you liked it. I wasn't sure what you might enjoy reading." "Emerson is an excellent choice. I've read his essays before, but it will be nice to have my own copy." She hesitated, then added, "I didn't expect such a considerate gift." "I'm full of surprises," he said, a trace of humor in his eyes. "Would you care to take a walk? I thought you might like to see a bit of Castle Dome in daylight." "I would like that very much." Mrs. Holloway, who had been pretending not to listen from the dining room, called out, "Be sure to show her the church, Travis, and the school, and perhaps the new dressmaker's shop." Olivia bit back a smile at the landlady's not-so-subtle hints about the attractions a potential bride might want to see. Outside, the day was bright and hot, though not yet at the peak of desert heat. Castle Dome was more substantial than it had appeared from the stagecoach the previous day. The main street boasted a variety of businesses: a general store, a bank, 2 saloons, a hotel, a blacksmith, and various other establishments that served the needs of the town and the surrounding ranches and mines. Castle Dome was founded in '63 after silver was discovered in the mountains, Travis explained as they walked. "The mines are still producing, though not as richly as before. The town's changing, becoming more settled, more families now, fewer miners." "And where do you fit in this community?" Olivia asked. "I'm a cattleman. My ranch is about 5 miles outside town. Started small, building up my herd year by year." His voice held quiet pride. "It's good land with a reliable water source. I run about 300 head of cattle now." "That sounds impressive," Olivia said, though in truth she had little context for what constituted a successful ranch. Travis seemed to read her thoughts. "It's modest compared to some of the big operations further north, but it's growing. Another few years, it could be one of the largest spreads in this part of Arizona territory." They passed the church, a simple white clapboard building with a small steeple. Next to it was the schoolhouse, currently filled with the sound of children reciting their lessons. "We have about 30 school-age children in town now," Travis said. "The teacher, Miss Sullivan, came out from Boston last year. She's done wonders with the school." As they continued their tour, Olivia noticed people watching them with undisguised interest. Some nodded politely or tipped their hats. Others whispered behind their hands. "I suppose I'm already the subject of town gossip," she said quietly. "It's a small town. Everything's gossip for a day or two." Travis's expression hardened slightly. "If anyone says anything unkind, you let me know." The protective note in his voice warmed her, though she was determined not to show it. "I can handle a few whispers, Mr. Thompson. I'm not made of spun sugar." "I never thought you were." He glanced at her appraisingly. "But a person shouldn't have to face unkindness alone." They had reached the end of the main street, where the buildings gave way to scattered houses and eventually the open desert beyond. Travis gestured to a bench beneath the shade of a cottonwood tree. "Shall we sit for a moment? There's something I'd like to discuss." Olivia nodded, arranging her skirts as she sat. Travis remained standing, as if too restless to be still. "I want to be clear about what I'm offering," he began. "I meant what I said yesterday. I'm proposing marriage, a real marriage, not just a temporary solution to your situation." "Why?" The question slipped out before she could temper it with politeness. He didn't seem offended. "Fair question. Partly because what Blackburn did was wrong, and I've never been able to stomach injustice." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "And partly because I've been considering seeking a wife for some time. The ranch is established enough now that I can offer a decent life. But I haven't found anyone locally who seemed—" He trailed off, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Who seemed?" Olivia prompted. "Who seemed like someone I could build a life with," he finished simply. "When I saw you yesterday, your dignity, despite everything, it impressed me." Olivia studied him, trying to reconcile his words with the reality of their situation. "You're still offering to marry a woman you've just met." "I am," he agreed. "It's not conventional, I know, but neither is a mail-order arrangement. You were willing to marry Harold Blackburn based on letters. I'm offering you time to get to know me in person before you decide. And if I decide against it, then I'll ensure you have safe passage to wherever you wish to go, whether that's back east or to another town out west." His gray eyes held her steadily. No obligation, no pressure. It was a generous offer, almost too generous. "What do you expect in return?" A flicker of respect showed in his expression at her direct question. "If you agree to marry me, I'd expect what any husband would: partnership, loyalty, assistance with the household. I won't lie and say ranch life is easy. It's hard work, especially for a woman used to city comforts." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Olivia said. "My circumstances in Philadelphia were reduced after my father's death. I've been supporting myself as a seamstress for several years." Travis nodded. "I thought as much. A woman doesn't travel across the country to marry a stranger unless she's seeking something better than what she left behind." His perception startled her. "You're very observant." "Have to be, in cattle country. Noticing details can mean the difference between profit and ruin. Or life and death sometimes." He finally sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm offering you a week, Olivia. Stay in town, think about my proposal. I'll call on you each day so we can become better acquainted. After a week, if you accept, we'll marry. If not, no hard feelings." A week seemed both incredibly short and surprisingly long to make such a momentous decision. But what alternative did she have? Her funds were depleted, her prospects in Philadelphia non-existent. "A week," she agreed. "But I have conditions of my own." His eyebrow quirked up in surprise and possibly approval. "Name them." "Complete honesty between us. I want to know everything about your circumstances, your past, your expectations, and I'll offer you the same candor in return." "Agreed. And I want to see your ranch before I decide. I need to know exactly what sort of life I would be accepting." He considered this for a moment. "That's fair. I can arrange for Mrs. Holloway and her husband to accompany us as chaperones day after tomorrow, Would that be acceptable? Olivia nodded. One more condition. If I do accept your proposal, I want a real marriage. She felt heat rise to her cheeks but pressed on. Not just a business arrangement or a convenient solution to mutual problems. I want the possibility of affection, at least. Travis's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I wouldn't offer marriage if I didn't believe that possibility existed, Olivia. The way he said her name, as if testing the feel of it on his tongue, sent an unexpected shiver through her. Then we have an agreement, she said, extending her hand. He took it, his calloused palm warm against hers. We do. The rest of their walk was less fraught with tension. Travis showed her the remaining points of interest in town, including the telegraph office where she could send a message to anyone back east if she wished. I should let my aunt know I've arrived safely, Olivia said. Though perhaps I'll wait until my situation is more settled before explaining exactly what happened. Probably wise, Travis agreed. No sense worrying her unnecessarily. As they walked back toward the boarding house, they encountered a group of women leaving the mercantile. Their conversation halted abruptly at the sight of Travis and Olivia. Good morning, ladies, Travis greeted them with a tip of his hat. A tall woman with iron gray hair stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, won't you introduce us to your friend? Of course, Mrs. Taylor. This is Miss Olivia Zimmerman. Olivia, this is Mrs. Alina Taylor, Judge Taylor's wife and the president of the Ladies' Aid Society. How do you do? Olivia said politely, noting the speculative gleam in Mrs. Taylor's eye. So you're the young lady who arrived yesterday. We've heard quite a bit about your unusual reception. Mrs. Taylor's gaze was assessing. And about Mr. Thompson's gallantry. Castle Dome has been most welcoming, Olivia replied diplomatically. Despite initial complications, Mrs. Taylor's thin lips curved in what might have been a smile. Indeed. Well, we're always glad to have new faces in town, especially young ladies of good character. You must join us for our sewing circle tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock at the church. It was clearly more command than invitation. Thank you, I'd be delighted. Excellent. We'll look forward to getting better acquainted. With a meaningful glance between Olivia and Travis, Mrs. Taylor led her group away, their whispers resuming immediately. The Ladies' Aid Society, Travis said once they were out of earshot. Castle Dome's unofficial governing body. They'll want to inspect you thoroughly before approving our potential match. I'm accustomed to social scrutiny, Mr. Thompson. Philadelphia society may be more refined than Castle Dome, but it's no less judgmental. A half smile lifted one corner of his mouth. I don't doubt your ability to handle them. Just be prepared for direct questions. Western women don't waste time with subtle inquiries. When they reached the boarding house, Travis hesitated at the door. I have business to attend to this afternoon, but I'd like to call on you this evening if I may. Perhaps we could continue our conversation after dinner. I'd like that, Olivia said, surprised to find she meant it. Until this evening, then. He touched the brim of his hat and was gone, his long strides carrying him quickly down the street. Olivia watched him go, trying to make sense of her conflicting emotions. In just 24 hours, her life had been completely upended. Yet somehow, standing on Mrs. Holloway's porch in the Arizona sun, she felt more hopeful than she had in years. Perhaps the West was a place for new beginnings after all. That evening, after a hearty dinner with the other boarders, Olivia joined Travis in Mrs. Holloway's parlor. The landlady made a show of needing to work on her accounts at a small desk in the corner, providing the necessary chaperonage while giving them a semblance of privacy. Tell me about your family, Travis said as they sat in matching rocking chairs by the window. You mentioned your father's death and that you worked as a seamstress. Olivia appreciated his directness. My father was a merchant. He had a moderately successful import business, but after his death, we discovered he had accrued substantial debts. My mother and I were forced to sell our home and most of our possessions. We took rooms in a respectable but modest boarding house, and I found work as a seamstress while Mother took in mending. That must have been a difficult adjustment. It was, especially for Mother. She had been raised in comfort and never expected to face such reduced circumstances. Olivia's throat tightened at the memory. She fell ill last winter, pneumonia. Without funds for proper medical care, she didn't recover. I'm sorry, Travis said quietly. Losing parents is never easy, no matter the circumstances. Something in his tone suggested personal experience. Your parents, both gone. Father when I was 16, Mother 5 years later. His eyes took on a distant look. He was a farmer in Missouri. Small place, barely enough to feed us all. When he died, I worked the farm as best I could, but it was a losing battle. You have siblings, 2 sisters, both older and married before Mother passed. A shadow of old pain crossed his face. After she died, I sold what was left of the farm, gave my sisters their share, and headed west. Worked as a ranch hand in Colorado, then Texas, saving every penny. Finally had enough to stake my own claim here in Arizona 5 years ago. Olivia was struck by the parallel tracks of their lives, both orphaned, both forced to make their own way. So you built your ranch from nothing? Pride straightened his shoulders. Every fence post, every head of cattle, every drop of water I've brought to that land, it's all from my own work. That's remarkable, she said sincerely. It's what men do out here, build something from nothing. His eyes met hers. But a ranch isn't just land and cattle. A true home needs more. The implication hung between them, neither needing to voice it aloud. What about your social circle here in Castle Dome? Olivia asked, changing the subject slightly. You seem well respected. I keep to myself mostly. Do business with the merchants, attend church, help when there's need in the community. I'm not one for saloons or gambling halls. No close friends, Travis considered this. The Holloways have been kind to me, and there's Doc Mitchell. He saved my life 2 years back when I took a bad fall during a roundup. Judge Taylor's fair-minded for all his wife's sharp tongue. He shrugged slightly. Men out here tend to measure friendship differently than back east, I expect. It's about who you can count on when times are hard, not who you socialize with. Olivia nodded, understanding. And what of Mr. Blackburn? What is your history with him? A flicker of something displeasure, perhaps, crossed Travis's face. Harold Blackburn and I have had our differences. He came to Castle Dome about 3 years ago, bought the mercantile. He's ambitious, always looking for ways to expand his influence. There was a water rights dispute last year. He tried to divert a stream that several ranchers, myself included, depend on. Judge Taylor ruled against him. That would explain his hostility toward you yesterday. Partly, though I suspect his pride was more wounded than anything. Blackburn doesn't like to lose, especially publicly. The clock on the mantel chimed 9, startling them both with the realization of how much time had passed. I should go, Travis said, rising. You have your meeting with the Ladies' Aid Society tomorrow, and I've kept you long enough. Olivia stood as well. Thank you for your candor this evening. It helps to know more about you. And you, he replied. I'll call on you tomorrow evening if that's acceptable. And then the day after we can visit the ranch as you requested. That sounds perfect. At the door he paused. Olivia, I want you to know that I meant what I said about this being your choice. If after seeing the ranch and learning more about me, you decide this isn't what you want, I'll understand. The sincerity in his eyes touched her. Thank you, Travis. Your consideration means a great deal. After he left, Olivia sat alone in her room, reviewing everything she had learned. Travis Thompson was clearly a man of principle and determination. His offer seemed genuine, his expectations reasonable. But could she really build a life with a man she had known for such a short time? As she prepared for bed, Olivia realized that her decision might come down to a simple question. Was the possibility of happiness with Travis Thompson worth the risk of the unknown? The next day brought the much-anticipated meeting with the Ladies' Aid Society. Dressed in her second-best dress, a dove gray silk with minimal trimming, Olivia made her way to the church, her stomach fluttering with nerves. The church's side room was already filled with women when she arrived. Conversations halted momentarily as she entered, then resumed at a slightly higher pitch. Mrs. Taylor rose to greet her. "Miss Zimmerman, how lovely of you to join us. Ladies, this is Miss Olivia Zimmerman, our newest arrival to Castle Dome." Olivia managed a poised smile as she was introduced to the dozen or so women present. They ranged in age from a few years older than herself to gray-haired matrons. Some wore simple cotton dresses, others more fashionable attire that would not have looked out of place in Philadelphia. "We're working on quilts for the orphans at the mission in Yuma," Mrs. Taylor explained, guiding Olivia to an empty chair at one of the quilting frames. "Do you sew, Miss Zimmerman?" "Yes, quite well. I worked as a seamstress in Philadelphia." This information caused a ripple of interest. "Professionally? How interesting," said a plump woman introduced as Mrs. Mitchell, the doctor's wife. "We could certainly use skilled hands. Our own dressmaker is overwhelmed with work." "I'd be happy to help where I can," Olivia replied, picking up a needle and thread. For a few minutes, they worked in relative quiet, the only sounds the soft rustle of fabric and occasional murmurs of instruction. Olivia was just beginning to relax when Mrs. Taylor spoke. "So, Miss Zimmerman, we understand you came to Castle Dome as a mail-order bride for Mr. Blackburn." The directness of the question confirmed Travis's warning. "Yes, that's correct. Mr. Blackburn and I corresponded for 6 months before I made the journey, and now you find yourself in a rather unusual situation with Mr. Thompson." Mrs. Taylor's tone made it both statement and question. Olivia kept her eyes on her stitches. "Mr. Thompson was kind enough to offer assistance when Mr. Blackburn changed his mind about our arrangement." "Changed his mind," repeated a sharp-featured woman with a skeptical sniff. "That's a charitable way of putting it." "We all heard how Harold Blackburn behaved. Disgraceful, if you ask me." Several women nodded in agreement, which surprised Olivia. "What surprises us," continued Mrs. Taylor, "is Travis Thompson's involvement. He's never shown interest in matrimony before, despite numerous opportunities." This with a pointed look at a pretty young woman sitting quietly in the corner, who blushed and looked down at her work. "Mr. Thompson explained that he has been considering seeking a wife for some time, now that his ranch is established," Olivia said carefully. "And you're considering accepting his proposal?" This from Mrs. Mitchell, her kindly face curious rather than judgmental. "I am. Mr. Thompson has given me a week to decide, and has offered to show me his ranch tomorrow so I can better understand what such a life would entail." This practical approach seemed to meet with general approval. The women exchanged glances that Olivia couldn't quite interpret. "Travis Thompson is one of the finest men in this territory," said an older woman who had been introduced as Mrs. Hollister. "My Henry says there's no man he'd rather have at his back in a difficult situation. Honest as the day is long and twice as hard-working. But ranch life isn't easy," cautioned another woman. "Especially for someone raised in the East. It's isolating, hard. The comforts you're accustomed to might be scarce." Olivia raised her chin slightly. "I'm not afraid of hard work or simple living, Mrs. Cooper, My circumstances in Philadelphia were modest at best. I came west prepared for challenges. Mrs. Taylor studied her over the quilting frame. May I speak plainly, Miss Zimmerman? I would prefer it, madam. We look after our own in Castle Dome. When Travis Thompson announced his intention to marry you, it naturally concerned us. Not because we doubt your character, but because his welfare matters to this community. The older woman's eyes were sharp, but not unkind. He's a good man who deserves happiness. If you're accepting his offer merely as a convenient solution to your predicament, with the intention of moving on once something better presents itself, I hope you'll reconsider. The accusation stung, but Olivia recognized the protective instinct behind it. Mrs. Taylor, I can assure you that I would never enter into marriage lightly, no matter the circumstances. If I accept Mr. Thompson's proposal, it will be with the full intention of being a true wife to him and building a life together here in Arizona. Her sincerity must have shown, because Mrs. Taylor's expression softened slightly. I believe you mean that, my dear. I just hope you understand what you're agreeing to. The romance of the West fades quickly when you're facing dust, storms, drought, and isolation. I'm not looking for romance, Mrs. Taylor, Olivia replied quietly. I'm looking for a partner, someone to build a future with. If Mr. Thompson and I can offer that to each other, then I would consider myself fortunate, regardless of the challenges. An approving murmur went around the circle. The conversation gradually shifted to other topics: the need for a larger school, the upcoming harvest festival, concerns about a dry summer affecting crops. Olivia joined in when appropriate but mostly observed, learning about her potential new community through their discussions. By the time the meeting ended 2 hours later, she felt she had passed some unspoken test. The women were warmer in their farewells, several inviting her to call on them if she needed anything during her stay. Mrs. Mitchell even walked part of the way back to the boarding house with her. They mean well, she said, referring to the questioning. We're protective of our own, as Alina said, but I think you acquitted yourself admirably. Thank you, Olivia replied. I understand their concern. Travis Thompson is more important to this community than he probably realizes. When the fever swept through last winter, he brought food to families too sick to fend for themselves. When the McDermott place burned down, he was first to offer help rebuilding. He doesn't make a show of it, but he's there when he's needed. Mrs. Mitchell adjusted her bonnet against the afternoon sun. A man like that deserves a good wife, someone who appreciates his worth. I'm beginning to understand that, Olivia said thoughtfully. Mrs. Mitchell patted her arm. Good, that's a start. With a smile, she turned down a side street toward her own home. Good day, Miss Zimmerman. I expect we'll be seeing more of each other. That evening, when Travis called, Olivia shared some of her experience with the Ladies' Aid Society, carefully editing the more personal aspects of their interrogation. They were actually quite welcoming. Once they determined I wasn't planning to break your heart or abscond with your cattle, she said with a small smile. Travis chuckled. Castle Dome's finest, protecting their investments. They think very highly of you. A flush of embarrassment colored his tanned cheeks. They exaggerate. I just do what needs doing, same as anyone would. Not everyone would, from what I hear. Olivia studied his uncomfortable expression with interest. His modesty seemed genuine, which spoke well of his character. Well, enough about me. How are you finding Castle Dome otherwise? Is Mrs. Holloway taking good care of you? She's been wonderful, and the town is growing on me. Olivia smoothed her skirt. I'm looking forward to seeing your ranch tomorrow. What time should I be ready? I'll come for you at 9 if that's not too early. The Holloways have agreed to accompany us. It's about an hour's ride. A sudden thought occurred to her. I should warn you, I've never ridden a horse, Surprise flickered across his face. Never. We had carriages in Philadelphia. No need for personal horsemanship. I see. Well, that's easily remedied. You can ride in the wagon with Mrs. Holloway. I've asked to borrow it specifically for your comfort. His consideration touched her. Thank you. It's practical, he said with a slight shrug. Can't have you falling off a horse before you've even seen the ranch. Might color your impression. The hint of dry humor made her smile. Very practical indeed. The next morning dawned clear and hot. Olivia dressed in her simplest day dress, a light blue cotton that would be cooler than her more formal attire. At precisely 9, Travis arrived with a wagon, Mrs. Holloway already seated in it, and her husband mounted on a sturdy brown horse. Good morning, Travis greeted her, offering his hand to help her up to the wagon seat. Ready to see what ranch life looks like? I am, Olivia replied, settling beside Mrs. Holloway. She couldn't help noticing how different Travis looked today, even more at ease in the saddle of his tall black horse. His movements fluid and confident as he guided them out of town. The journey took them through increasingly sparse settlements until they were traveling across open range land, sagebrush and scrub stretching to distant mountains. Despite the heat, Olivia found herself entranced by the stark beauty of the landscape. It was nothing like the lush greenery of Pennsylvania, but it had its own wild appeal. There it is, Travis said finally, pointing to a cluster of buildings in the distance. Thompson Ranch. As they drew closer, Olivia could make out a modest but well-maintained main house built of adobe and wood, a large barn, several smaller outbuildings, and corrals containing horses and cattle. A windmill turned lazily in the breeze, and she could see the glint of water in what must be a stock pond or small creek. Travis helped her down from the wagon when they reached the yard, his hands strong and sure at her waist. It's not much compared to Eastern standards, he said, a hint of defensiveness in his tone, but it's solid and growing. Olivia turned in a slow circle, taking in the neat yard, the flowers someone had planted along the front of the house, the distant view of mountains. It's lovely, Travis. Truly. Relief flickered across his face. Let me show you around. For the next hour, he guided her through the property, explaining its operations with obvious pride. The main house was simple but comfortable, with a large kitchen, a cozy parlor, 2 bedrooms, and an attic that could be converted to additional rooms if needed. The implication for children hung in the air unspoken. The furnishings were basic but well crafted. I made most of it myself, Travis explained when she admired a particularly beautiful pine table. Winter evenings get long. Gives me something to do with my hands. You're very talented, Olivia said, running her fingers over the smooth surface. Outside, he showed her the vegetable garden, currently tended by his ranch hand's wife, and the small orchard he'd started 2 years ago. Apples, peaches, and plums, he said. They're still young, but they should produce well in another year or 2. You've thought of everything, Olivia observed, tried to. Self-sufficiency matters out here. He gestured to the distant range. I've got grazing rights to about 5,000 acres. Good water, good grass, the herd's healthy and growing. While Mr. Holloway went to inspect the cattle with Travis's foreman, Mrs. Holloway prepared lunch in the kitchen, insisting that Olivia and Travis continue their tour. This would be your domain, Travis said somewhat awkwardly as they returned to the house. If you decided to accept, that is. Olivia looked around the clean, simple kitchen with its wood-burning stove, large work table, and well-stocked pantry. She could imagine herself here, preparing meals, perhaps canning fruits from the orchard, creating a home. It was a far cry from the elegant Philadelphia townhouse of her childhood, but it had its own appeal. "It's a good home, Travis," she said softly. "You should be proud of what you've built." Something in her tone made him turn to her, his expression suddenly intense. "It needs a woman's touch. Someone to make it more than just a place to sleep and eat. Is that all you're looking for? Someone to keep house?" "No," the word was emphatic. "I want a partner, Olivia, someone to share the work, yes, but also the rewards, the sunsets here." He moved to the window, gesturing westward. "There's nothing like them anywhere else I've been. And the stars at night, they're close enough to touch. I want someone to share those with, someone to build a future with." The raw honesty in his voice moved her. This wasn't a rehearsed speech or empty flattery. This was a man revealing his deepest hopes. "I understand," she said. "I want that too." Their eyes met, and for a moment Olivia felt a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. Travis took a step toward her, then seemed to catch himself, glancing toward the doorway where Mrs. Holloway might appear at any moment. "We should join the others for lunch," he said, his voice slightly rougher than before. The meal was pleasant, with Mrs. Holloway keeping conversation flowing easily. Afterward, they toured the rest of the property, including the bunkhouse where Travis's 3 ranch hands lived and the small schoolhouse being built near the main road. "The nearest school is in town, too far for daily trips," Travis explained. "There are 4 other ranches within riding distance with children. We're pooling resources to hire a teacher who'll live in a room at the back. That way, all the children can get an education." "That's very forward-thinking," Olivia said, impressed by the community spirit the project represented. "Children deserve a chance to learn, no matter where they live." Travis's expression was earnest. "My own schooling was limited. I don't want that for the next generation." By the time they prepared to return to town, Olivia had a clear picture of what life at Thompson Ranch would entail. It would be hard work, certainly. Isolated, especially in winter. Far from the cultural amenities of a city like Philadelphia, but it would also offer independence, purpose, and the chance to build something meaningful alongside a man who seemed to value those same things. As Travis helped her back into the wagon, their hands lingered together a moment longer than necessary. "What do you think?" he asked quietly, his eyes searching hers. "I think you've created something remarkable here," she answered honestly. "Thank you for showing me." His smile, the first full, genuine smile she'd seen from him, transformed his face, softening the lines of determination and lighting his gray eyes. "Thank you for coming." On the journey back to town, Olivia found herself noticing different aspects of the landscape, not just its harshness, but its beauty. The way the sunlight gilded the distant mountains, the unexpected splash of wildflowers in a protected hollow, the vast, open sky that seemed to promise endless possibilities. Perhaps this land wasn't so unlike her after all. Both had faced hardship. Both had endured. And both, it seemed, still held the capacity for unexpected beauty. That evening after dinner, Olivia and Travis walked slowly down Castle Dome's Main Street, the setting sun casting long shadows across the dusty road. They had dispensed with a chaperone for this short, public outing, a small liberty that nonetheless felt significant. "I've been thinking about your proposal," Olivia said as they reached the end of the street and turned back. "And?" Travis's voice was carefully neutral, but she could sense the tension in his shoulders. "I believe I would like to accept." He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "You're certain? It's only been 3 days. You still have time to consider." "I've considered what matters. You've been honest about what life with you would entail. You've shown me respect and consideration, and I believe we could build a good partnership together." She met his gaze steadily. "Unless you've changed your mind." "No," he said quickly. "No, I haven't changed my mind at all." A slow smile spread across his face, making him look younger, almost boyish in his pleasure. "I'm honored, Olivia, truly honored." In the fading light, with the sounds of the saloon piano drifting through the evening air and townspeople nodding greetings as they passed, Travis Thompson took Olivia's hand in his. "If you're certain, then I'd like to marry you as soon as it can be arranged." Reverend Collins could perform the ceremony Sunday after services, if that's not too soon. Sunday was only 3 days away, a mere week after their first meeting. By any reasonable standard, it was madness. And yet, Olivia found herself nodding. Sunday would be perfect. Travis's hand tightened around hers, his thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles in a gesture that sent an unexpected warmth through her. "I'll speak to the Reverend tomorrow, and I'll need to prepare the house. Make sure everything is ready for you. I don't need much, Travis. Just a place to belong." Something flickered in his eyes, a depth of emotion that caught her by surprise. "You'll have that, Olivia, I promise." The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Mrs. Holloway and the Ladies' Aid Society took charge of arranging a proper wedding reception at the church. Mrs. Mitchell insisted on lending Olivia a beautiful cream-colored dress that had been her own daughter's wedding gown. "She's back east now with her husband and wouldn't mind a bit. It needs someone to wear it." Travis rode back to the ranch to prepare the house and returned with a simple gold band. "It was my mother's," he explained when he showed it to her. "I've kept it all these years. I'd be honored if you'd wear it, but I understand if you'd prefer something new." "It's perfect," Olivia said, touched by the sentiment behind the offering. "I would be honored to wear something with such meaning." On Sunday morning, Olivia dressed with Mrs. Holloway's help, her hands trembling slightly as she fastened the tiny buttons of the borrowed wedding dress. "Nervous?" the landlady asked kindly. "A bit," Olivia admitted. "It's all happened so quickly." "Sometimes that's the way of it out here. Life doesn't wait for long courtships and elaborate preparations." Mrs. Holloway adjusted the simple veil. "Travis Thompson is a good man, Olivia. One of the best I've known. He'll treat you well. I believe he will." And surprisingly, she did. In less than a week, Travis had shown her more respect and consideration than many men she'd known for years. When they reached the church, Olivia was startled to find it full. It seemed the entire town had turned out for the wedding of Travis Thompson and the mail-order bride, who had been so dramatically rejected and then claimed. As Judge Taylor escorted her down the aisle, having offered to give her away in the absence of her father, Olivia caught sight of Harold Blackburn sitting stiffly in the back row, his expression sour. Their eyes met briefly, and she felt a momentary flash of gratitude. His rejection had led her to this moment, to this man waiting for her at the altar with steady gray eyes and a face transformed by quiet joy. Travis took her hand when she reached him, his grip warm and sure. "You look beautiful," he whispered. The ceremony was simple and traditional. They spoke their vows clearly, exchanged rings. Travis had somehow acquired a plain gold band for himself as well, and were pronounced husband and wife in less than 15 minutes. When the Reverend said, "You may kiss your bride," Travis hesitated only a moment before leaning down to place a gentle, chaste kiss on Olivia's lips. It was their first physical contact beyond hand-holding, and the warmth of his mouth against hers sent a startling flutter through her stomach. The reception that followed was a cheerful affair, with tables set up outside the church laden with food prepared by the town's women. Everyone seemed determined to make it a proper celebration, perhaps to compensate for Olivia's earlier rejection. Mrs. Thompson, people called her, the new name still strange to her ears. They offered congratulations, advice, and promises to call once she was settled at the ranch. Through it all, Travis remained at her side, his hand occasionally finding the small of her back in a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. "Ready to go home?" he asked as the afternoon waned, his voice low near her ear. Home. Such a simple word, yet so profound in its implications. "Yes," Olivia replied. "I'm ready." They left amid cheers and well wishes, driving away in the wagon now filled with wedding gifts and Olivia's few possessions. As Castle Dome receded behind them, Olivia felt a curious mixture of nervousness and anticipation, having second thoughts. Travis asked, his eyes on the road ahead. "No," she answered truthfully. "Just adjusting to how quickly life can change," he nodded. "A week ago I was a bachelor with no particular plans to change that status. Now I'm driving home with a wife." "A wife you barely know," Olivia pointed out. "I know enough," Travis said, echoing his words from their first meeting. "The rest, we'll learn together." The simple confidence in his statement calmed her nerves. This was not a conventional beginning, but perhaps conventional beginnings were overrated. They had chosen each other with clear eyes and honest intentions. That seemed as good a foundation for marriage as any. When they reached the ranch, Travis surprised her by coming around to her side of the wagon and lifting her bodily to the ground. "Traditional," he explained with a slight smile. Carrying the bride across the threshold. Inside, Olivia discovered that Travis had indeed been busy preparing for her arrival. Fresh curtains hung at the windows, clearly purchased in town, their newness evident. Wildflowers filled a pottery vase on the table. The house smelled of fresh bread and coffee. "Mrs. Holloway helped before the wedding," Travis explained, seeing her surprise. "Wanted everything to be welcoming for you." "It's wonderful," Olivia said, deeply touched by the effort. They shared a simple supper, the conversation occasionally lapsing into awkward silences as both adjusted to their new reality. After they had cleared away the dishes, Travis showed her to the bedroom, their bedroom now. "I'll sleep in the other room tonight," he said, his expression serious. "Give you time to settle in." Relief and an unexpected twinge of disappointment mingled in Olivia's chest. "Thank you, that's very considerate, Olivia." Travis took her hands in his touch gentle but firm. "I meant what I said about this being a real marriage. But I also meant what I said about there being no pressure. We have time to know each other better before all aspects of marriage." The directness of his statement brought color to her cheeks, but she appreciated his honesty. "Thank you, Travis, for everything." He brushed a stray curl from her cheek, the gesture achingly tender. "Get some rest. Tomorrow I'll show you more of the ranch operations. Start teaching you what you'll need to know." After he left, Olivia sat on the edge of their bed and tried to process everything that had happened. A week ago, she had been on a stagecoach, heading toward a future with a man she knew only through letters. Now she was Mrs. Travis Thompson, a rancher's wife in Arizona Territory. Life, it seemed, had a way of taking unexpected turns. And sometimes, perhaps, those turns led exactly where one needed to go. The first weeks of marriage brought a series of adjustments for both Olivia and Travis. She learned the rhythms of ranch life, the early mornings, the constant work, the satisfaction of seeing immediate results from one's labor. Travis learned to share his space and his decisions, to consider another person in plans that had for years been entirely his own. There were awkward moments, certainly. The first time Travis walked into the bedroom without knocking, not realizing Olivia was changing clothes. The morning she accidentally used the last of the coffee, without knowing it was rationed to last, until their next supply run. The evening when a disagreement about how to store the kitchen implements led to tense silence over dinner. But there were beautiful moments, too. The first time Travis showed her how to ride a horse, his hand steady at her waist as he helped her into the saddle. The evening she surprised him with a pie made from wild berries she had discovered growing near the creek. The Sunday morning when they rode to church together, and Travis proudly introduced her as my wife to a visiting family, physical intimacy developed gradually between them. A brush of hands over the breakfast table, his palm at the small of her back as they walked together, her fingers straightening his collar before they left for town. 10 days after the wedding, Travis kissed her goodnight for the first time since their wedding ceremony. It was a tentative kiss, questioning rather than demanding, and when Olivia responded with equal gentleness, she felt him smile against her lips. "Good night, Mrs. Thompson," he whispered, his voice rough with an emotion she was beginning to recognize. "Good night, Mr. Thompson," she replied, her own voice unsteady. 3 nights later, when he kissed her again, deeper and with less restraint, Olivia twined her arms around his neck and drew him closer. "Stay," she whispered against his mouth. "Stay with me tonight." His eyes, when he pulled back to look at her, were dark with desire and something more complex. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said simply. "I'm your wife in every way now." That night, as Travis introduced her to the physical aspects of marriage with gentle patience and unexpected tenderness, Olivia discovered that the connection they had been building over weeks of shared work and conversation had created something powerful between them. Something that made their physical union feel like a natural extension of the partnership they were forging. Afterward, lying in his arms with her head pillowed on his chest, Olivia listened to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and felt a sense of rightness that transcended all the uncertainties of their unusual beginning. "Olivia," Travis murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I never expected this." "What?" she asked, raising her head to look at him. "This feeling." His eyes, soft in the moonlight filtering through the window, held hers. "When I offered to marry you that day in the town hall, it was partly because what Blackburn did made me angry. And partly because I did need a wife, practically speaking." His hand moved to cup her cheek. "But I never expected to feel this way about you so quickly." "What way?" Olivia's heart quickened. Travis was silent for a long moment, as if searching for the right words. "Like you're becoming essential. Like the ranch, the cattle, this land, none of it would mean anything without you here to share it." The raw honesty of his confession brought tears to her eyes. "Oh, Travis, I'm not a poetic man," he continued, his voice husky. "I can't offer pretty phrases or grand gestures. But I can promise you this. I will work every day to be worthy of your choice, to make this life one you never regret accepting." Olivia pressed her lips to his, trying to convey through touch what words seemed inadequate to express. "I don't regret it," she whispered against his mouth. "Not for a moment." As summer turned to fall and fall to winter, the Thompson ranch prospered under their joint care. Olivia proved herself adept at managing the household accounts, bringing order to Travis's haphazard record-keeping and identifying ways to reduce expenses without sacrificing quality. Her skills as a seamstress saved them money on clothing and household linens, and her garden flourished under her careful tending. Travis, for his part, found himself working with renewed purpose. Each improvement to the ranch, each successful drive to market, each new head of cattle added to the herd, all of it now had deeper meaning because it contributed to the future he and Olivia were building together. In town, they were regarded with a mixture of approval and lingering curiosity. Their unusual beginning remained a subject of occasional gossip, especially when Harold Blackburn had too much to drink at the saloon and complained bitterly about Thompson stealing what was rightfully mine. But for the most part, Castle Dome had accepted their marriage as a success story, the mail-order bride who had found her proper match after all. and the solitary rancher who had finally found a partner worthy of his hard-won prosperity. As Christmas approached, Olivia decorated the ranch house with pine boughs and red ribbons, determined to make their first holiday together memorable. Travis watched her with amused affection as she transformed their home. "My mother used to do this," he said one evening as she hung a wreath on the front door. "Made everything festive, no matter how little we had. Said Christmas wasn't about the gifts, but about making the ordinary feel special for a little while." "She sounds like a wise woman," Olivia replied, pleased to hear him speak of his family. He rarely mentioned them, the memories still tender after so many years. "She would have liked you," Travis said, his eyes warm as they rested on her face. "Said I needed someone with spine and sense to balance my stubborn streak." Olivia laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." On Christmas Eve, after they had exchanged simple gifts by the light of the fire, Travis reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet pouch. "One more," he said, a hint of nervousness in his expression. Olivia opened the pouch to find a delicate gold locket on a fine chain. When she pressed the tiny clasp, it opened to reveal a miniature portrait of Travis on one side. The other side was empty. "I thought perhaps, when spring comes and the photographer visits Castle Dome again, we might have a proper wedding portrait done," Travis explained. "Then you could put it in the other side, so you'd have both of us with you always." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes at the thoughtfulness of the gift. "It's beautiful, Travis, thank you." He fastened the chain around her neck, his fingers lingering against her skin. "I have something else to tell you," he said, his voice suddenly serious. "I've been offered a chance to expand the ranch. Old man Hollister is selling his spread to the east. It would double our grazing land, give us access to another water source." Olivia's heart quickened at the possibilities. "That sounds like an amazing opportunity. It would mean taking on debt, working harder than ever for a few years, maybe delaying other plans." His eyes searched hers. "It's a risk. Life is risk," Olivia said softly, "but calculated risks taken together are what build a future." Travis's expression lightened. "Together," he repeated. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." He pulled her close, his arms strong around her waist. "I love you, Olivia Thompson. I should have said it before now, but I do. I love you." The words, so long unspoken between them, filled a space in Olivia's heart she hadn't realized was empty. "And I love you, Travis Thompson, more than I ever thought possible when I stepped off that stagecoach." His kiss was tender, reverent, a promise of all the years stretching before them. That night, as they lay entwined in the darkness of their bedroom, Olivia shared her own news she had been saving for the perfect moment. "I have a Christmas gift for you two," she whispered. "One that can't be wrapped or put under a tree." Travis propped himself up on one elbow, his expression curious in the moonlight. "What is it?" Olivia took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "In about 7 months we're going to have a child." For a moment, Travis was utterly still, his eyes wide with shock. Then a joy so pure it was almost painful to witness transformed his face. "A baby? You're certain?" Dr. Mitchell confirmed it yesterday when I was in town. "I wanted to be sure before I told you." Travis gathered her close, his hands trembling slightly against her back. "A child," he repeated, wonder in his voice. "Our child." "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, though his reaction had made the question almost unnecessary. Happy doesn't begin to describe it. He pressed his lips to her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "This is everything, Olivia. Everything I never dared hope for." In that moment, wrapped in her husband's embrace with their unborn child nestled between them, Olivia thought back to that day in the Castle Dome town hall. How close she had come to despair. How a stranger's voice had changed the course of her life with 3 simple words. She is mine. Not a claim of possession, she understood now, but a recognition. A man seeing in an instant the possibility of a shared future. A chance taken, with no guarantees except the willingness to work together toward something neither could build alone. "I love you," she whispered again, the words still new enough to feel miraculous on her tongue. "I love our life together." Travis's answering smile held all the warmth of the home they had created and all the promise of the years that lay ahead. "And I love you, Mrs. Thompson, more with each passing day." Outside their window, the vast Arizona sky blazed with stars, witnesses to the quiet miracle of 2 lives becoming one. On the range, cattle slept peacefully, unaware of the joy within the ranch house. And in Castle Dome, the story of the mail-order bride and the cowboy who claimed her continued to be told, embellished with each retelling but true in its essence. Sometimes, the heart recognizes its match in an instant. And sometimes, the bravest choice is to say yes to that recognition, no matter how improbable the circumstances. 5 years later, on a bright autumn day, Olivia stood on the porch of the expanded Thompson ranch house, watching her husband teach their son to ride his first pony. 4-year-old Thomas was a miniature version of his father, with the same determined set to his jaw and the same storm-gray eyes. Beside them, 2-year-old Emma clapped her hands in delight, her blonde curls so like Olivia's bouncing in the sunlight. "Mama, watch me," Thomas called as Travis led the gentle pony in a circle. "I'm riding like Papa." "I see you, sweetheart," Olivia called back, one hand resting on the slight swell of her stomach where their 3rd child was just beginning to make its presence known. "You're doing wonderfully." As she watched her family, the family she had never expected to find when she boarded that stagecoach to Castle Dome, Olivia felt a wave of gratitude so intense it brought tears to her eyes. The ranch had prospered beyond their expectations. The additional land Travis had purchased had proven even more valuable than anticipated when a small silver deposit was discovered on its eastern edge. They now employed 6 ranch hands full-time and had built a comfortable home large enough for their growing family. But it wasn't the material success that filled Olivia's heart as she watched Travis swing Thomas down from the pony and scoop Emma up for her turn. It was the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged, with a man whose quiet strength and unwavering integrity had proven to be exactly what she needed. "What are you thinking about, looking so serious?" Travis asked as he approached the porch, Emma perched on his shoulders and Thomas running ahead to the water pump. "How fortunate I am," Olivia replied simply. "How grateful." Travis set Emma down gently and climbed the steps to stand beside his wife. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining with the easy familiarity of years together. "I'm the fortunate one," he said, his voice low and sincere. "Walking into that town hall 5 years ago was the best decision I ever made." Olivia leaned into his side, drawing strength and comfort from his solid presence. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't?" Travis was quiet for a moment, considering. "I believe some things are meant to be, Olivia. Some connections are written in the stars long before we recognize them ourselves." He brushed a gentle kiss against her temple. "We would have found each other somehow, I'm certain of it." As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the Arizona sky in shades of gold and crimson, the Thompson family gathered for dinner in the home they had built together. Thomas regaled them with tales of his riding prowess, while Emma carefully arranged her peas in patterns on her plate. Travis and Olivia exchanged glances across the table, the kind of look that speaks volumes without a single word. Later, After the children were asleep, and the ranch had settled into nighttime quietude, they stood together on the porch, gazing up at the canopy of stars that had witnessed their journey from strangers to partners, to lovers to parents. "You ever miss Philadelphia?" Travis asked, his arm warm around her waist. Olivia considered the question seriously. "I miss certain things, the libraries, the museums. Occasionally, I miss having shops nearby." She turned in his embrace to face him. "But I have never, not for a single moment, missed the life I left behind. This," she gestured to encompass the ranch, their home, the two of them standing together under the vast Arizona sky. "This is where I was always meant to be. With you." Travis's eyes, silvery in the moonlight, held hers with an intensity that still made her breath catch after all these years. "I love you, Olivia Thompson, more today than yesterday and less than tomorrow." "And I love you," she whispered, rising on tiptoe to press her lips to his. "My husband, my partner, my home." As their kiss deepened, a shooting star blazed across the heavens above them, a silent, cosmic affirmation of a journey that had begun with a chance meeting and three simple words: "She is mine." Words that had led, against all odds, to the truest thing either of them would ever know. They belonged to each other, now and always, in a bond forged by choice rather than chance, and strengthened by each day of the life they continued to build together on the wild, beautiful frontier they both now called home.